Are your action lists overflowing and full of overdues? You might be putting the wrong things on those lists. Hello, I'm Tom. Welcome to my channel where we talk about continuous improvement in an industrial setting. And this video is going to be about action lists and especially how to keep them crisp and clean. Because in many meetings we see action lists with lots of points, lots of overdues and tracking a load of stuff, and probably a load of stuff that they should not be tracking in that meeting. It is a symptom of action lists in other meetings also not really working, your escalation process not working, but still fix the action list within your meeting to make sure you have more effective use of your time. So let's go over some best practices for operational meetings. And by that I mean daily control meetings, performance control system meetings, such type of standing meetings, where of course you have an action list, but how do you limit what to put on there to make sure you spend your time effectively? And the main rule here is the 2 or 3 times rule. Let me explain what I mean by that. 2 to 3 times the interval of your meeting is the ideal action length. So if you have a daily meeting, you should be trying to get actions on there that will take about 2 to 3 days. Of course, actions that are done the next day, that's also fine. But 2 or 3 days is really the sweet spot. If you have a couple of actions, 4 or 5 days, it's still not really a problem. But when we look at this sample action list, so to say, when we have a daily meeting and we see an action like rewrite the policy, rewrite some HR policy, and we put 3 weeks on it. First of all, usually it takes even longer to rewrite a policy, but this is way too big for a daily meeting. And you see that when we have an action that will take so long, it means it needs to be pushed off into a system where you say, we give the project of rewriting this policy into the correct department, the correct group to handle this, because a daily meeting is not a good place to follow up such long actions. Now, with rewriting a policy, basically the best you can do is indeed hand off, escalate why it is needed and make sure that work starts and will be completed at some point. What you also see a lot are things like install a new valve, but we haven't got the valve, so we need to order it, we need to check which type of valve we need. But basically we know that as soon as we order it, it'll have a 2-week delivery time, then we need a small break like cleaning in the machine and we install it. So this part here, it takes way too long because this is actually 3, 4, 5 actions and a lot of waiting time in between. And also, you probably have a different system for this. Your daily meeting is not the system to be following up such technical stuff. So when you discuss that the valve is giving you such big problems that really the daily meeting is going to start the process of getting a new valve, what you should be doing is ordering the correct pump, the correct valve, and this part itself, so making sure we check which pump or valve we need and that it is ordered and that you have also an order to replace the valve or the pump in the field when the part arrives. This whole thing takes, 1, maybe 2 days. So here we also see a nice time, a deadline of our action, because we split a big action up into that part that a daily meeting should be handling. Now, this will go on to another action list. Probably you have a maintenance work order control system, so your maintenance department will also have their workflow. You put in a work order to have the valve and the pump repaired. They check, we don't have the spare part, we order it, and they see when it comes in that there is a work order attached. This system should work. So when you check your action list, your performance control system action list, and you see a lot of technical actions that are really about the installing, and your operational colleagues, they are not willing to drop these type of actions off the list, that is a big hint that you need to be checking the maintenance department's workflow management, because apparently the operators, team leaders, they don't really trust that this maintenance system in this case is going to deliver the results. They probably had bad experiences when they just ordered it and afterwards it wasn't installed or they weren't notified. So this is a red flag for another meeting. But when you're trying to improve the efficiency of this daily meeting, which I assume is not the technical meeting, but even in the technical daily meeting, make sure that you start the correct processes that will be followed up in the other part of your organization that is meant to do this following up. And a very similar one, when we have solve a root cause which is not known yet, so we first launch a team and we get into what is the problem, we go and analyze the root causes, define an action plan, implement those actions, and then we get it solved. Well, 12 days is not a bad deadline, it's not a bad running period, but this is a daily meeting. We don't want, after 12 days, to hear was it a success or not, but also we don't want every day to be checking, have we solved it, have we solved it? And for these type of mini teams, for these type of mini projects, there is another very good way of handling this, where with this maintenance system, we take basically the assumption that the maintenance work order system should be working by itself. Here, when we're talking about root cases within our production, it is still, I think, best to let your operational meetings handle it, but handle it in a different way. So first you start up your root cause analysis team. This will take you 1 or 2 days to get the people together, give them their assignment, free up the resources. Then the one who started up the team comes back to this meeting, reports who's in the team, what's their mission, and what will be the next date when they will have a proper problem description. So then you get a new action that will be put on the list after we okay that the team is started up, is they will have the problem description ready for us, and it will be again discussed in this daily meeting in 3 days. So after you put a new action on the list again. And in this way you will get, in a 6-step problem solving approach, you will get 6 actions on the list, one after another. And this is good because you get a very nice control over your root cause analysis team. Every couple of days you know what they will be delivering into your meeting. Now, I think that the person sitting in the meeting who is the owner of the problem, even though he might not be in the team, that person should be doing the reporting, but maybe it's also the leader of your root cause analysis team. But they will get back on this topic. Then they know a new date for the next step. Then they know a new date for the next step. And what you will get is a lot more control and also much more realistic deadlines. Now, solve the root cause. Either the same action will be first 2 days and 3 days, then we don't know how many days. So it doesn't really help you, but more likely after 12 days, you go check and see, is it solved now? So there's no intermediate control, no feedback on the process, even though this meeting is the owner of this problem. And you will not get any nice status updates. This helps you to restate when things happen. And it also helps you that when in the beginning you thought, well, this is sort of a medium-sized problem, it will take me 12 days, and the team discovers that it is actually quite an involved problem. After they have the problem description, maybe put in temporary measures, they will say, oh, but the analysis phase, we already know this is going to take us about 14 days because we need to do lots of tests. We would have totally gone over this original 12-day assessment, but now the team can tell us, this is our new plan. We think we need so much time. You can okay on it and at least have a good expectation. You can also at that moment say, well, if it is so much effort, this problem is not worth it. So like this, you make sure that you keep your focus on the actions and also the resources you are spending. And that is, of course, the whole idea of having these operational meetings and these operational action lists. Make sure that you are spending your time in the most effective way to improve the operation and to keep control over what you are doing. For that, really get to these 2 to 3 times the meeting interval type of actions. Now, when you're doing a weekly meeting, that also means that in a weekly meeting, You are looking for actions that will take about 2 to 3 weeks. And of course, if there's 1 or 4 weeks, it's not a problem, but the bulk of your action, this time frame. So why not 1 week actions in your weekly meeting? Well, if you have a lot of actions that have only one time the interval of your meeting, you are probably running the whole time and reacting to all the latest things. Probably those actions are being taken on a too high level. If they can be solved in a couple of days, the daily meetings under your weekly meeting should have probably already solved it. Also, a weekly meeting is there for midterm management of your processes, not for doing all kinds of very small course corrections. So when you are designing your meeting structure, also keep this in mind. You have your shift and your daily, your weekly, your monthly meetings, and they all have their own span of action control and things that they should be taking into account, that they should be responsible for. And when you want to improve the effectiveness of all of those meetings and your entire performance control system, make sure that each meeting is running and organizing the actions that are within their scope. Now, another thing where the 2 to 3 times rule comes in is that the number of actions should be about 2 to 3 times the number of participants. So when you have a 4-person meeting, about 10 actions should be the limit. And if you want to put more actions on the list, you are probably not focusing your attention well enough. Now, of course, when you have all those long-term actions on your list, your action list will not free up in time to give you the speed and action that you need to improve your organization. So these two work in tandem. But when you put actions on your list that really do expect an active participation of the members, and you are at your 2 to 3 times the interval of the meeting, so 2 to 3 days for daily, 2 to 3 weeks for a weekly meeting, and the members get about 2 to 3 actions, and you will usually see that some people get a bit more action, so they will get about 4 actions on their name every time that this meeting runs, you will have a nice speed to work with and a focus where to now improve, where to now take action. And that's what you want from an effective performance control system. Don't overburden everyone with actions, because in the end nothing will happen. And also don't abuse your action lists as a sort of monitoring system for things that should be implemented in a couple of months. You want to keep your meetings clear and crisp and your action list manageable, so that you have the resources and the correct focus to be constantly moving and improving the operation on those parts that will give you the biggest return. So both of these rules, best practices for action lists, they give you a good way to force the decision. Because in the end, if you force to make the right decision and to really prioritize what needs action right now and what will give the most back to the organization, then you are driving performance. If you just make it a wish list or a sort of long-term checking list, you are not getting the effectiveness out of yourself, your time, your people's time that you could be having. Now let me know in the comments, what do you think of these 2 rules for limiting action lists? How is it working for you in practice? What would you say is the most important thing to do with action lists and how many actions, stuff like that? I do hope that you liked this video. Hit the like button if you did. For now, I wish you the best of luck managing your actions and making sure that your effort goes towards improving your operation in the maximal efficiency. But as always, enjoy also that improvement journey.